All right, so we're not pouring the beer yet. You're gonna shock us. You're gonna shock our mind during the podcast.
I am. So cue us up. What are we doing here?
All right, are we live?
We're rolling.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Le Grande Bouffe
The big frickin' feast.
with myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host Mike Lacy.
Brang, brang, forever.
Look at my shit. This is my shit. You see my shit? This is my shit.
That's a pretty good alien. Alien. I forgot he's called Alien.
Alien. He's got it on the back of his car.
What's your take on James Franco?
In general?
Yeah, just in gens.
He's a classic overachiever.
Yeah.
Is just a classic overachiever, and sometimes he's a little too full of himself, and so he comes up short. But for the most part, he pays off handily. He's a hard-working dude.
I like him. I think a lot.
I have a huge respect for James Franco. No
I
question.
think a lot of the stuff he does is real shit. But you know what I learned today from an AV Club review of the.
Really? I don't think he does shit. I mean, the stuff crap that he does is like the postcards where he poses like different authors or something. Have you seen that? I was in the Strand and I saw this hokey project that he did where it was just not good.
You know how many films he's directed already?
He's directed?
Yeah, how many films he's directed?
I'm guessing a dozen.
18.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was one real turkey that I saw a few years ago at the New York Film Festival.
What was it?
I just hated it. I'm going to look it up and tell you.
I saw a movie at a film festival, the Defy Film Festival, which just had its second.
What's the name of it?
Well, so the film festival is called the Defy Film Festival, but there was a film about, in the first year of it, it was about the experience of a author who, I'm going to blank on the author's name, but he had one of his memoirs adapted by James Franco, and it was about the experience of James Franco making a movie about your life.
Oh, no.
And it seems like the experience is that James Franco doesn't talk to you a lot while he's making a movie about your life. But
sounds painful. Child of God, that was the one I saw that I just didn't work. You know about that one from 2013?
It's not also called... It's called Child of God. Okay, no, I saw a movie that's based on a David Sedaris book called COG, which stands for Child of God, but it's a different movie. Yeah.
Bizarre.
It's the only David Sedaris book which has ever been adapted into a film.
Love David Sedaris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fan.
And his crazy sister. She's about the funniest person I've ever seen in my life.
She's getting her show on True TV is finally premiering. It seems
Love
like
her.
it's going to be amazing.
Amy.
It's going to be like an
Such
acid trip version of Martha Stewart.
Such a freak monster. She's the female Norm Macdonald squared.
Yeah, I love Norm Macdonald.
I do
and
too.
She is
funnier than Norm Macdonald.
funnier than Norm Macdonald. She's so much more. Yeah.
I know. She's juicy.
Juicy, yeah.
Her comedy, it's like that
It's
that
juicy.
candy that, you know, when you bite it, like juice comes out of it.
Fruit gushers?
Spring Breakers?
Spring break. Spring break. We watched Spring Breakers. Harmony Korine's 2000.
I'm so glad we got to this movie. I'm so glad that we finally got to Harmony Korine, because I have very mixed.
Korine.
I don't know. I have very mixed emotions about Harmony Korine, because I think that he is not quite the genius that Werner Herzog imagines him to be. However,
Werner Herzog thinks he's a bigger genius than he actually is what you're saying?
Yeah.
So you're really critiquing Werner Herzog right now?
That's right.
Okay, just doing the math.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't think all of his movies really stack up, but he has become, upon my watching this, which is the most recent. I don't know if he's made a movie since this one.
I don't believe so, but I might be wrong.
He has really come a long way as a filmmaker. When I watched this movie, I was just so impressed with how polished and how seamless and just slick this movie is. It's so slick.
I watched this with my roommate and my friend Nick, who works in the TV industry, and we were all just... We watched it last night. We'd all seen it before, and we were just raving about it and unpacking it, and it's just a film which
It captures so much about
It just makes you want to unpack it and
the
watch it again.
underbelly of American existence and entitlement and white privilege and
there's so many layers of, like, there's a element
trajectory of life.
there's an element that he's trolling you. There's an element that
Mhm.
he's telling you the most earnest story about young people. There's an absolute debt to Terrence Malick, and also the real world and the real Cancun, which we'll
And the
talk
real
about
Cancun,
soon
which
enough.
yeah, we're gonna backpedal onto that one.
It is such a. We were talking about what would Terrence Malick think of this movie, and I think he'd be like, or I think my friend Nick said this last night. And I agree with him. Terrence Malick would be like, "This is dope." Like, first of all, love the tits. Second of all, the camera work and the storytelling is just fucking great.
The problem is if this were Terrence Malick, the thing would be 3 times longer and really boring.
Yeah,
And that's what Harmony gets right is the editing. The editing on this thing is just brilliant. I have to say,
level.
Yeah, it really is. The storytelling, the way that he blends the storytelling, the way that he uses the actors. He's got Selena Gomez, for crying out loud.
So a lot of this cast is. It was shocking that they were in this film.
Yeah.
And I have to say, looking back, the career decision of all of them, not that they're the most blockbuster actors, except for, the exclusion of James Franco, this did not hurt their careers at all. They knew which way the wind was blowing, and not claiming that all films are as fascinating and divisive as this, but we have really, in some ways, embraced and are grappling with the message this movie is doing. I don't know. It's
well,
funny.
also coming, for us watching this, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but watching this movie on the heels of Hurricane Irma is really topical, because you can't help but watch this movie in the context of what's been happening with this horrible hurricane tragedy. And not look at it through that lens.
Well, it's something like when we get to the real Cancun, that film was filmed during the invasion of Iraq. This is a place of beauty and precariousness, and it's an intense relationship with nature, and people who go there to find themselves and see different parts of the world are not thinking on that level. Before we get too far into it,
tell us about our beer.
I'm gonna tell us about our beer. So I've kept this in a bag.
It's been a secret.
I wouldn't show Cole what this was.
I'm very curious.
So
my curiosity is piqued.
This film is a subversive thing. It's an anti-genre. It is breaking the mold of what it should be. So I've broken them, and it's also poppy. It's neon.
Those neon bathing suits, and he's always about the booty. Korine's always.
He's all about the booty.
He's always putting the camera on the booty.
He's all about making sure that there's red light bulbs everywhere. So in the vein of that, I did something subversive for our podcast.
All right, let's see.
I didn't exactly go craft, and I didn't exactly go beer. I went to the movie. I got us for tonight a tall boy of Budweiser Limerita.
This is what these kids are beer bonging.
This is what they want.
That's what they're beer bonging. There's a lot of beer bongs in this movie. Did you notice that?
Yeah, there's a lot of beer bongs.
I don't even really understand a beer bong. I know the
physics.
I know about real bongs. I don't know about beer bongs.
Yeah, it seems like most of the beer goes on your face. Is the idea. So this is a Limerita. It's from the Budweiser Corporation. You may have heard of them, a little brewery. Let's see if it says the ABV.
This is sacrilege to have this beer on our podcast. I have to say, we're gonna have some
8% ABV. It's a classic margarita taste.
8%.
It seems like it's a subcategory of Bud Light Lime.
We're gonna have to do some penance for this. I think we might have to have We might have to have a beer brewer on. Perhaps Chris Cusme.
Yeah, we have to.
Chris Cusme is opening a new brewery very soon, and there's a good chance that we could have his brewery is called the Fifth Hammer.
Fifth Hammer.
And they're they're opening very soon, within weeks.
What's their location in the city?
Brooklyn.
They're in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know whereabouts or?
Well, let me look it up, Mike. Let me see if I can find out.
Okay, so taking a quick drink off the Limerita. I'm impressed by how much it tastes like Pixie Sick dissolved in seltzer water. That's my first note.
All right, Long Island City.
Mm.
They are located at 1028 46th Avenue in Long Island City.
The Limerita, it really is like a
Fifth Hammer.
Fifth Hammer in Long Island City. It's like a water. It's like if you took a margarita and you had there's a lot of ice in it, and you just left it in the sun, and then you put it in a fridge to cool it down.
Yeah.
It's like a bad version of that.
This is the kind of shit that 18-year-old white kids drink like it's good.
I would
they drink it like lemonade.
I would bring this to parties. I'll admit that. Like up through the
wait a minute. Are you saying you did?
I did. This is my first.
You brought Limer. How many would you bring?
I would bring
a 6-pack.
I would bring a 6-pack of mini Limeritas, which were
8 ounce.
Yeah, they're like 8 ounces, so you could just chug them in a second. And I would do it because
that's got to give you heartburn.
It gives you a hangover worse than anything because the sugar content I can't fucking imagine.
Oh my god, it's so sugary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hurting me. I have to make a horrible face every time I sip it.
I mean, like it's like a soda. It's all it really is. Like I don't hate it, but like
I hate it.
There's no beer conversation that you can have about it. It's just alcoholic sugar water.
Oh.
With it's not even. I'm surprised at how non-carbonated this is.
It tastes really carbonated to me.
Oh, you think it's really carbonated?
Yeah. I'm going to tell you about Fifth Hammer Brewing just because I feel obligated to ballast out since you got the.
I respect that a lot.
Since you're bringing the big beer.
I'm glad you're not looking up the Budweiser.
Yeah,
facts. Tell us about Fifth Hammer.
Yeah, let's learn a little about Fifth Hammer. Fifth Hammer Brewing Company is a 15-barrel brewery in planning.
Is it true that they don't actually brew Limeritas there? They got some good things going for them.
I don't think Limerita is allowed within about 10,000.
Oh, cool!
Feet.
And they're in Long Island City.
Yeah, and they're founded by Chris Cusme, who's a very nice guy, great saxophone player too. As a side note, and David Scharfstein. We're almost finished with the build-out, currently navigating our way through the Department of Buildings and hoping to open within the next month or two.
Very cool.
And there's a nice photo there of what the brewery's going to look like, where people can sit and hang out.
Oh yeah, they got a nice tasting room.
Mm-hmm. Right there, and you can see the what are they called? Those giant stainless steel brewing things.
Let's call it a carafe.
All right, so
New York has some low-key great breweries.
Great breweries in New York.
It's New York. New York has a way of having immense quality, world-class quality, without making a big fucking deal about it. You know.
And Chris has already said that he would come on the podcast. So this is the guy right here. That's the champ. Right
I have a number of friends that are chemists, and they might one of them works in the pharmaceutical industry, and another one is in drug testing. Shout out to you guys. You know who you are. You don't listen to this show. You should. You fucking bastards. Anyway, they all just want to work at breweries. That's the end game for anyone cool who's into chemistry. Is you might make your big money in pharmaceuticals, making that pill work a little better, but everyone just wants to make the next great craft.
Well, Al or Alien, he's all about working the chemicals.
James Franco.
Yeah.
is given an Oscar-worthy performance
Oh,
in this flick. But let's back up to the beginning. This
Let's back
is
up to the
about
beginning.
a group of 4 girls, but it's also important to subdivide them into maybe 2 and then 2 others.
Okay, but we got to get their religious context because they're very Christian.
And can you pull up the IMDb? Because
They
if I was super paying attention, their names, except for Faith, played by Selena Gomez, is a little tricky to remember. So we have Selena Gomez as Faith, who is rather faithful.
She prays.
She prays. She's seen throughout the movie giving voicemails to her grandmother, checking in. She's kind of the nice girl and the last addition to the Spring Break crew. And then we have I think we want to pick up
Candy, Vanessa Hudgens.
I want to go to Rachel Korine, the wife of the filmmaker.
Okay.
Is the next nicest girl on the trip. She's the second to leave.
She's very blonde.
She's very blonde. And then we have the sort of team who are talked about early on in the film as being kind of like out of control and like bad news.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Vanessa Hudgens and Ashley Benson.
Candy. Vanessa Hudgens is from Salinas, and I went to school in Salinas. I lived in my van.
Oh, yeah.
When I was going to Hartnell College studying drama in Salinas.
She's do you remember her from high school or college or anything?
Yeah, I didn't meet her while I was there. She was probably about 3.
She's like a good decade younger than me.
Yeah.
Vanessa Hudgens and Ashley Benson, both Disney Channel stars. Well, Selena Gomez as well. I'm not sure Ashley Hudgens.
Okay, so
Ashley Benson's background, but Vanessa Hudgens is a High School Musical. Selena Gomez is a Wizards of Waverly Place and a touring Disney musician.
Yeah.
So
but tell us about the 2 baddest ass girls. Who are they?
So that's Candy and Britt, Vanessa and Ashley Benson. And when I first watched this movie, it doesn't really register when they're discussed as being like bad news in that way.
Yeah.
But there's this very well filmed and interesting scene where they're trying to get money to go to spring break. First, they hit up Selena Gomez, and in a very fun, girly, but watching it a second time, kind of aggressive way, are like, give us the money for spring break.
And also a lot of lesbian stuff going on.
Yeah,
like almost like hazing kind of stuff.
Yeah, it starts as implied and cutesy, and then it turns into full 3 ways by the end.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to get enough money to go to spring break. And let's talk about what the concept of spring break is.
Let's go for it.
To them. For Selena, it seems to be this experience of personal growth and discovering herself.
Yeah, I think that's how they paint that picture to themselves. That's the story that they tell themselves.
That may have been what Selena's character Faith was wanting to go
they're all members of this prayer group.
Are they? I don't know. I think we just see Faith in the prayer group.
But wait a minute, because they're all in the same dorm.
I think they go to college together. I think
is that it?
Yeah, and Faith knew Candy and Britt from earlier in life. It's one of those things where you fall out of touch, but you have this relationship.
So they're college dorm roomies,
right?
And Faith is the one who's the preacher's daughter.
Faith is a bit of our window into the movie, and it's an interesting writing move to have our window character.
And I've dated a couple of preacher's daughters, and I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, they're the first girls to bail on spring break. Yeah, that's... Ooh, this is why we're an audio podcast. You're making some interesting faces. That's... Oh, boy. That's problematic. Anyway. So, spring break to Faith is definitely this stand-in for personal growth and also just genuinely seeing the world. And there's something that Korine is hitting on, which is hard for someone who's cynical about this to me, because I didn't go to spring break. I didn't want to be like caught dead doing these things. Like, and there's something both so basic, and I wouldn't want to be seen in it, and also I didn't feel like hot enough or cool enough to go.
Listen,
to these things. It's a very exclusive thing that MTV created about spring break,
right? And I graduated from high school in '81, and I left Richmond, Virginia, total culture shock, going to San Diego State, which was Playboy magazine's #1 party school in California. Complete opposite. And so I was used to brunette girls with glasses who read a lot of books.
Do you still know their names?
Yeah, but I'm not gonna,
Yeah, well, I was talking
Not gonna-
after.
not gonna-
That's sort of okay.
Yeah, but anyway, so the point is, so then every girl at San Diego State to me was like a spring break kind of girl.
Mhm.
They were all party girls.
What did did spring break mean anything to you? What was the concept of spring break when you were in high school and into college? Well, because that was.
I think spring break is it's a Florida phenomenon
Mhm.
for sure. And it's a Miami thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally when you get off of school in high school and college.
And I think
But-
typically I think it's supposed to be your senior year when you go and you break loose. You've
of high school.
of high school. You've got 6 weeks left that you're going to have to return to and maybe take a couple of
Right.
exams, but this is really it. This is the big
These
blowout.
girls are in college.
And
but
so,
like,
and so, if you're anybody living in the Midwest, let's say, and you've never been out of your podunk town, and you get to go to Miami
just
or
tropical,
wherever, and just
exotic,
let everything
hedonist based.
total debauchery.
Right. So that's, I think, what Korine is getting at is there's this relationship with spring break and a loosening of moral. Decision making of social mores.
It's a rejection of all of the social and sexual repression that America is so famous for. It's that chance that all these raging hormones that are going through these kids' bodies, they get to just tap into that and leave all of that repression behind. And because they've all been so repressed in so many ways, everything just gushes out.
Yeah, and it's taking it to its logical conclusion, but also this film's very specific at showing that different types of people's relationship with a loosening of that moral fabric. They have these limits. Like,
well, there's a little bit of natural born killers in it because these girls, at least two of them, the ones who initiate the heist in the beginning.
Yeah, which let's talk about in detail in a second.
Yeah, and I love the way Korine repeats the lines. He repeats their direction when they say, don't be afraid of anything. They have these little things that they say.
Right.
It's like a video game.
It's like, you're not afraid, are you? You're not a pussy. You're afraid. I can tell you're afraid.
But
you're afraid.
Yeah, but then they have the actual motto or the lines that they repeat that they say
mantra,
the mantra that they say to get them through the thing, and it's this weird logic. It's a video game logic.
Well, you bring up video games, which is one of the things they say to psych themselves up is don't think about it like it's real. Think about it like it's a video game. I think that's what they say is think about it like it's a video game.
Mm-hmm.
And so the real, I don't know, is it the? I guess it's the inciting.
It is the inciting incident.
The inciting
Absolutely.
incident
Absolutely.
is that they rob a chicken restaurant, and
Mhm.
it's shown to us in kind of two different ways,
Yeah.
two different times.
Yeah.
And its first time, it's done in a one shot, which is really interesting. It's shot from the point of view of Rachel Korine, who is the wheelman for Candy and Britt, who are committing a robbery. And we see them go in, and you watch this movie the first time might find it really fun, this idea that these girls are robbing a restaurant to get enough money to go to spring break. And it makes me think of this film called Sugar and Spice about a cheer squad that robs a bank, I think is the plot of that. Like there's movies where
Right, and there's that Sofia Coppola movie about the girls.
The Bling
Ring, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how dark the Bling Ring is cuz
I haven't seen it. Maybe we should do that one sometime.
Maybe we should do it.
Yeah.
But what this movie could do, and I think at first is masquerading as, is a movie where it's cutesy to see like girls who just want to have fun like committing crimes.
Yeah.
Because
it's hot.
It's hot. It's funny. Like they shouldn't be doing that. Like burglarizing people. That's for like tough black guys to do.
Right. And he's also making a very keen play on that because, these are very entitled white girls to everything is just to them everything is just a game.
That's exactly they repeat themselves. It's like separate yourself from the reality of this.
So it has that. So it has that female empowerment. This is the girl power. This is super and I mean like riot girl kind of thing, where
but in a very like. In a cynical in a corruption of the essence of that.
Well, in a way that's informed by hip hop music and just social classes that are not their own. They're emulating social classes that are not their own.
Well, also I will say from the beginning, and watching this a second time, it's clear that Britt and Candy are explicitly, we're told that they're kind of sociopaths, and it seems hyperbolic when it's first told that, but it completely holds up.
Yeah.
And so Korine is like riding this really fine line. One interpretation of this film is that people who want to cut loose and forget about the morality of their actions, the extreme of that is just total depravity and just being murderous drug dealers and just out for blood and having no conscience. But it also points out that those people who really go to this extent, they were fucked up from the beginning, and there's no reason to think that all of these girls were really given was opportunity. This was the first restaurant they had the opportunity and reason to rob. Maybe it wasn't the first one. And these are bad apples.
Well, that's true, but I think that it's all about context, and these are girls who there is no reason to believe that they have any intellectual aspirations whatsoever. They're all about immediate gratification, and that's what this is. They have this need, and they're going to fill it, and whatever it takes, because that's how they experience the world. That whatever it is that they want, they can have, and they will have.
Yeah, but you don't judge them as sociopaths. You're so quick in watching it to see this as a critique of all young people. In a problematic way, you want to be like all like.
Well, no, especially because the movie is called Spring Breakers, so Harmony Korine really does a genius thing in the way that he sets it all up, because you're going to go along for the ride because you want to see them drink out of beer bongs, take their tops off, snort coke, and dance around to some DJ. That's what you expect, and he gives you that payoff very well.
He gives you these cutaway sequences, which are almost lip service to the people who were in the audience when I saw this originally. I saw this at a 10 p.m. screening in Nashville. A couple weeks after it came out.
One of these actresses is from Nashville. Did you know that? His wife.
It must be his wife, because he's from Nashville.
Yeah, she's from Nashville.
And the audience, I love this. I was walking out, and I remember a guy saying, I really thought there was going to be more boobs. So we've been skating around it, but this is an amazing piece of subversion, because this was not marketed as an edgy satire that will make you rethink. This was it came out like late summer, if I remember.
2013?
Late summer 2013. It was seemingly supposed to be a vicarious
2012.
fun trip into Florida if you couldn't make it yourself.
No, it is complete social satire. There's no question about it. And I do love the way that he introduces Franco's character, because he is a hip hop artist, and he's
named Riff Raff is the guy. I don't know if you know. There's a guy who's like
Hanging with the Dope Boys. That's the song, right?
Yeah.
Hanging with the dope.
So
Hanging with these dope boys.
Look up Riff Raff real quick. He is this white dreaded rapper this is an extremely clear and rude parody of.
Nice.
If I was Riff Raff, I would have sued the shit out of this movie.
Nice.
But Franco is really next level, and also exactly who he always is. There's an element of him staying James Franco,
Yep.
which actually really serves the character who is not actually the OG that he thinks he is.
Yeah, he's totally Riff Raff. No question.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
It's ugly. But I love the way that he introduces Franco's character because it's so seamless in the context of Spring Break. And, of course, these girls get busted for drugs in their hotel room. They've been doing beer bongs and letting guys snort coke off their titties. Am I right about that?
So it's...
Is that why they get busted?
I want to unpack it because it's actually unclear why they're busted. There is a montage of partying, which is filmed in a way that is very different than the rest of the movie. I mean, there are
a lot of close-ups.
There are these slow motion sequences of people partying on the beach. There's a lot of nudity, and there's a lot of very like sexually charged drinking methods.
And faux peeing and the mouth methods.
These are, like I was saying before, these are sort of lip service to why the audience is there. It's the promise of the premise. It's giving it to you.
Yeah.
But then inside of this like sandwich of critique and satire, which really like sours you on it. And I think what sours you the most on it is the editing, which is so epic and sort of like fascinatingly paced that you can't fully enjoy those scenes. It's not.
Yeah. That's what makes this movie, to me, that's what makes this movie very different from any other Harmony Korine movie, is the way that he tells the story with the camera, because there's not a scrap of wasted film in any of it. He's very concise about what it is, there it is, and then this. And they get busted. They get hauled off in their little
and it's this
their little bikinis.
And it's this I just want to like put a final point on that. We're in one of these music video type scenes.
Everything is
cut back into this more narrative filmmaking or narrative film element, and it's never clear who was doing coke off whose tits.
But it doesn't
matter.
But the thing that's consistent is how hypersexualized it all is. And so, you know, when you see the cops, they're all fully dressed. They've got their guns and their batons, and they're taking these girls who are bare feet, wearing nothing but panties and bras, essentially bikinis, and they take them and they throw them in the jail. And it reminded me of the situation that happened where the cop arrested this nurse.
Oh, yeah.
And immediately when I watched that video, I thought, well, that's sexual assault right there. That is sexual assault. Because anytime you have a brutish guy who's 6'3", 220 pounds, and there's some girl, she's like 5'3", and he's manhandling her and throwing her all over the place and putting handcuffs on her, that's a sexual encounter. You know, that is a humiliating public sexual encounter that you're watching. It's disgusting. And you get a little bit of that in this. But what I like that Harmony does is he takes it all the way to the courtroom. And so they're sitting, they've been in the jail cells, and then they're sitting in the courtroom. They're still in their bikinis.
Yeah, they're not given jumpsuits.
They're not given any clothing at all. They're being exploited for the sexual objects that they are.
Well, there's maybe a critique of the criminal justice system there, that either he's like, clearly you're here for spring break. You can either pay these steep fines or spend 3 days in the jail. So you get a glimpse of how this economy of these communities work, that they basically bust these parties and get these kids that they assume are rich and throw either 4 days in jail at them, or they can pay $1,000. and that's how they keep the streetlights on. It's a bizarre thing that this need of American teens has done for the structure of these economies, which are,
well, and
underwater, struggling to put themselves back together.
And it plays right into James Franco's character, Alien, because Spring Breakers.
Someone's got to provide those drugs.
Yeah, he's been cashing in on that for years, and he grew up in a, as we learn in the backstory. I love the way they explain the backstory, because he bails the girls out, so they're indebted to him, and he takes them on a nice little free ride for them to have some fun, and explains his backstory of how he grew up in the Black Hood and unreliable father, unreliable mother, whatever, got mentored by this guy who's now his rival, his former best friend, who's this black gangster, and that he has patterned his life after.
So this really takes it to we've crossed a threshold here in the film into Spring Break entering this metaphorical thing, and it has something to do with
in this local reality. They've come out of the fantasy of Spring Break, and now there's
this 2-week getaway where you go to the beach and there's like hot guys and you
they've been taken out of that, and now they're thrown into the reality of Florida. This is what's going on in Florida. This is the guy who's going to take better care of them than anyone else. He's got them out of jail. They would have been rotting in jail for 3 more days. And I really, there's certain scenes that just resonate so much. And the one where James Franco and Selena Gomez, where he's telling her how much he likes her.
That is such a crazy, weird, real, bizarre
He is just working his mind fuck.
Yeah,
and telling her, your friends are gonna stay with me, but I really love you. I really like you. Whatever he says.
I really like you. I just want you to know that I like you so much.
Oh.
And you look away. You look away from the screen and you look back, and it's still happening.
Yeah, because she's never had any guy give her that much attention in her life.
Yeah.
And he knows the secret. He knows that. And
it's really well done, where it's clear that he knows, like. Well, okay, so to back up a second, there's a scene where he's trying to impress these girls, and he knows that to be just sort of a gangster and just talk like big shit is going to impress them. They're like pulled over at a rest stop, but then he talks to Selena, and he finds out her name is Faith, and immediately he's like, "Oh, this one takes a different type of approach," and you can just see him flip the game and talk to her in a different way, and.
Well, and it's a tactical maneuver, because he's gonna approach the hardest nut to crack. He's gonna go for her the most, because he knows the other ones are already on board. So he's gonna go for the hardest nut to crack. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, and it ends up not working. She ends up bailing. It's
saying something about our impulse to what? It's an extension of Spring Break, which is to not give a shit about your sexual commitment, your relationships, intimacy, and if you carry that to its natural extent, like what would it look like to be on Spring Break forever? I guess you'd have to become an alien type, Riff Raff drug dealer dude. Is that it? Is it something about this fetishized gangster identity? He's very American.
Here's the thing. He's the local version of who these girls aspire to. These sociopaths who have already established themselves as sociopaths, and now we have to talk about the scene.
The gun sucking scene.
Yeah.
You didn't bring. Yeah, that's the scene for me.
That's the scene.
We didn't have this discussion, but that's the scene. Yeah,
that's the scene in the movie, because he's thrown down his whole rap. Look at my shurikens. Look at my machine gun. Look at all
Tannin oil.
my cash.
My friend Nick was like, I bet they didn't write any of this. They just put him in a room with props, and we're like, so James, just show them the things you have.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, look at my nunchucks, look at my ninja stars, look at my tanning
Look
oil.
at my shit. Look at this, all my shit. And he keeps saying it over and over and over.
And Franco's like, it just hits this great line where, are you doing this poorly, Franco, or is this character not fully really this person? Because of course he wouldn't be this person.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
He's got Scarface on, permaplay. That tells you everything you need to know. That spells it. And the girls,
because it's the lamest shit, and it's also such an MTV.
But I mean, it's a good movie. I mean, here's the thing.
But how does it end for Scarface?
Yeah, but here's right. We know that. But it is a great movie. And the girls.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's a shitty movie.
Oh, it's a great movie. We're gonna talk about Scarface later. But the girls appreciate that. They're on with that. He keeps getting these confirmations from the girls, and one of the confirmations that he gets is about Scarface, because they're down, like they recognize that, and they
it's a signifier of
a mentality,
of
a gangster mentality, of a fuck everyone mentality. I'm better and badder than anyone.
But it's also deeply nihilistic and
deeply
two-dimensional,
nihilistic. And then we get to the scene where he has had them on tenterhooks. He is in control. It's his crib. He's got all the magic. And then they pull the guns. They pick up his guns. They have silencers on them.
And he does this.
They're loaded.
And he almost he breaks character from.
That's loaded. That gun's loaded.
He's like, hey, don't point that at me, please.
Yeah. A couple of times. Don't point that. Don't.
Seriously, don't point that at me.
And then they break him.
It's a very well done transition of power.
It's so frightening.
They're making it clear that they're not that unfamiliar with guns, and
they're not these pretty things that they appear to be.
And when they start they really seem like they're holding him up. They start by acting that they're gonna kill him. They're gonna shoot him in the face.
Well, their first instinct is to reenact what they did in the fish restaurant,
right?
Chicken restaurant.
Which itself seemed like a reenactment of what they had seen a stick.
So that part, it all makes sense from their logic. You understand the scene from their logic because they see this opportunity. They're gonna role play some, and then as soon as they start to role play, they realize that, okay, now we got to go further. Where are we going to go next? And so they keep escalating.
Well, I think they went into taking those guns.
I mean, this is where the real transformation happens.
Right.
This whole thing about I'm going to spring break to find myself. This is the moment when these girls find themselves.
I think that's right. And so I think they go into that, consciously or not, willing to kill James Franco, alien, and just take his life there.
Sure.
But then he does something which triggers something that they did not expect. Is he starts filleting the silencers of these guns, and
two in his mouth hole.
Yeah, and a light bulb clicks, and they realize that there's types of power more than just physical ones. They realize that they can dominate someone else sexually, and it also it harkens back to an earlier thing where they had made a bunch of jokes about sucking dicks when they were in class together. They were drawing pictures about it, and it was clear that the penises were things that kind of gave them purpose and
and they like sucking dicks,
and but not that we ever see it in the film. And actually the only filleting that we really see is James Franco on these guns. And so there's something empowering, and I think they you were saying this. They find themselves, but the they that is finding themselves and what they discover is a very aggressive sociopathic thing, and it's almost saying it's like if this spring break concept is where you are really discovering who you are, that is a dark place where
they mutually identify. He identifies them as soulmates, and they identify him as a soulmate. And I have to say, I mean, from an actor perspective, what Franco does in that scene, it's pretty humiliating, but it would be a really hard scene to do for most actors. But Franco just has so much fun with it. He totally plays with it, and he just goes all the way.
I think he really deserves like credit for what that is. I mean, at the same time, like how many actresses have totally visually or not performed fellatio in a film. We don't give them that much credit, and a guy does it and we give him all that.
Well, but with the loaded gun, ostensibly loaded gun,
right.
It's a crazy, you got to give it to you got to give it to Harmony for writing that scene, because that scene,
and to have it pull off the intended effect, like
if the trailer for this movie was just that scene, it would blow your mind. And so, you would say, okay, I got to see this movie because this movie is too crazy.
So many things about that scene. One is, you could imagine someone starting from that scene and writing a movie around it, and not really having that scene have much real resonance, meaning, purpose in the film. It's nuts. It's a fucking drug dealer and these hot chicks make him like suck the dicks of their silencers, but it actually is deserving in the film. It has real purpose and impact, and that is a credit to Korine.
Well, I would say that scene. That we mentioned Scarface. About the chainsaw scene in Scarface. Yeah. You've seen Scarface.
Yes.
I think that scene is equal to the chainsaw scene.
I think it's almost the exact same beat in the movie. There's a threshold that is crossed there. There's a boundary which is moved beyond that accomplishes. Yeah. And in Scarface, it has to do with his lieutenant, right? It's kind of that guy is seeing what's happening and realizing where he's in. And I think these girls are realizing that they have a power beyond what they understood.
And also, there is a connection, not to put too fine a point on it, but there is a connection between this movie and Scarface, because Scarface was set in Miami, and all the crazy drug shit that happened in the early 80s in Miami. So there is a full awareness.
I would say, Alien is the fallout of Scarface, of people glorifying that life, which is it's spring break forever. I will. What I say is I'm gonna make 2 points here. One, I think a weak point of the movie is Franco's refrain of "spring break forever." Like, it's so quotable, but it's also so kind of silly because
he's a silly guy. He's a silly guy, but he has a piano permanently set outside.
That was my second point.
Yeah.
Is my when I pulled this up last night, my roommate Jill was like, "Oh, my favorite part of this movie is a Britney Spears thing." I was like, "I don't remember that." It is one of the greatest pieces of a film in the past 10 years.
And also we haven't talked about the Pussy Riot connection.
The pink ski mask thing.
Yeah.
So the three girls that are left, because Selena's gone, Rachel, Korine is still there, and Candy and Britt, and they sing a cover of I'm blanking out. I'm not that familiar with the I don't know the name of that one Britney song, but it starts with they come out and you assume he's gonna play piano crappily. He plays it beautifully. You assume he's gonna sing poorly. He sings nicely.
Well, he sings crappy, but
he sings crappy.
Yeah, it's okay. Passable. Yeah.
And the girls sing along because at least one of them is established Disney vocalist, and they do this cover of a Britney song, and then the real song comes in, and it's cross cut with them burglarizing Spring Breakers and it is so well cut. It's a typical thing to have this sarcastic or ironic music set against violence. Like, we see that so often now, it's draining. But for some reason, in the context of this, it hit this other note and these other feelings, and it just felt very operatic and perfect.
Well, there's definitely an operatic feeling to the movie. I'm not even quite sure how Korine achieves it, but the movie does by the time there's a shooting that occurs where one of the girls gets shot in the arm, and that's what really sends the movie on its final trajectory. And by that,
we've transcended narrative and logic, and we're just in a music video.
Yeah.
After that, these girls, the girls that are left, the movie's very affected by which girls are left. The ones that are left there's no right or wrong per se. It's just pleasure, just enjoy. But it's just aesthetics. It's just,
well, the fact that they never really wear anything other than these neon bikinis.
Yeah,
that's a big part of it. It's the fact that they can exist this way. And there's no other place in the country where girls could run around in neon bikinis barefoot 24/7.
So then when they
I don't know, San Diego, I guess.
When they strap on AK-47s and they have the pink ski masks on, it has this heightened element of fantasy, but it's also literally seems possible in Miami, and also it just really feels like, is this the natural extension of letting go? If is what Spring Break is about, is it 2 weeks of not giving a fuck, but what if you didn't have that limit to it? What if you lived in that Rumspringa forever? What if you didn't put a cap on it? And what's that look like? And it's not a city you want to live in. It's not a neighborhood you want to be near. It's very scary.
Well, and it's certainly not people that you want to hang out with. But Pussy Riot was established in 2011. So how hip was Harmony Korine?
Yeah, I think
he made this movie a year after Pussy Riot
I think he knew what he
was
doing.
founded.
Yeah.
And he was on top of that shit so hardcore.
No,
so he really, I don't want to, I don't want to overstate how far the tentacles of this movie reach, but it does attain this international quality.
Well, it also dates itself musically in a way that it seems very intentional and is interesting. It could have been scored without pop music and achieved a longer shelf life, but watching it, a lot of these songs, you know exactly what year it came out, but that is very specific, I think, to the temporalness of living like this. We'll talk next week about The Real Cancun, but that movie, in a way that makes it less rewatchable, is extremely of that week. But these songs, I mean, there's actually there's a fair amount of original music for it, which is really great. But this movie, like, I could tell you, like, oh yeah, that summer, I remember that Ellie Goulding song that is in the closing credits. Like, I remember when that was on all the time. It really feels specific to then, and even like the Britney Spears nostalgia dated it in a certain way, because you had that type of nostalgia for that type of Britney Spears at that time, and I think that there's an intentionality to that.
Listen, I remember, when I moved to New York in '97, moved to Manhattan, and Come On Baby One More Time with Britney with her little short skirt and her knees together with their little feet spread apart, and it was they had the Virgin Records in Times Square, and that was the big billboard there, was Baby One More Time. And I just remember thinking, I was 36 or something at the time, and thinking, oh my God, that's so risque. It was so risque.
This movie is about, and it's like closer, and it's basically my generation given the times this movie has come out. It is my generation, certainly, but the girls in this are a couple years younger than me.
All right, so you were a senior in high school in 2012?
No, I graduated college in 2012.
Okay, so this is after you.
Yeah, well, they're in college. They're like freshman or sophomore. Yeah, so this is they're a bit younger than me. Yeah, but this is
Are they college or high school?
They're in college.
Okay.
They're in college, because they're in dorms.
Oh yeah. Okay. Good point. Yeah.
This is a generation of people that have nostalgia for Britney Spears. Like, you're talking about Britney Spears in your 30s and like seeing these billboards and having that, sort of.
Yeah, that was 1998, I think, when
right, and you're
having
having that reaction to the way that affected culture and like how weird that was, the sexualizing of a young girl, and like
so young. I mean, it was really
okay. Imagine
risque.
So that's 1998, right? These girls were 3, 4 when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that is completely what their context of being a human is. So. They're
all right, so what we have here is a scathing indictment of American pop music, hip hop culture, and and American sexual repression.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
I left something out. I left the biggest one out, and capitalism.
To Korine's credit as a provocateur, the indictment of sexual repression is the most interpreted thing that it's the most implied thing that you're saying. It's next level. It's, if anything, like, really the point of view of this movie would be from a very sexually morally conservative person, and I think that's where Korine as a troll is.
This movie is we did hardcore that
right.
George C. Scott. This is like hardcore was 1979, and this is 2000. This is hardcore for 2012.
But there's no parents,
which tells you a lot.
Yes,
which tells you. I mean, there are parents, but they're just at the other end of the cell phone.
You watch movies the past 20 years, and what's I think very different about them than movies of the 80s, of the 70s, of the 60s is you don't see the parents. The modern version of Rebel Without a Cause, the parents are a big deal and the parents ultimately to blame. The parents aren't even to blame in this movie because they are just the other end of voicemail calls.
Yeah, no, it's society. It's clearly American society.
But what is who the fuck is society, man? Like it's
society is everything. Society is the pastor who wants everybody. Do you feel it? Are you? I can't even. Are you? How cool this is and how great this is. He's part of the problem.
Do you love Jesus?
Yeah.
You feel Jesus?
That's right.
But are you down with Jesus?
Yeah. Yep. Television.
What is that?
Yeah, that's all of this.
Very unauthentic.
It's all of these things that you don't see. It's also the culture of fast food. They want to go to spring break. They're going to go rob the fast food restaurant. They're going to drive their car to the fast food restaurant where they can rob people.
And the criminal justice system learns to work around this thing. It's like, okay, how do we make money off these people?
Exactly.
We're not going to try to change them morally for.
But Korine is not hitting any of these points on the nose. He's just putting it there for you to digest, and you get to really. Hey, okay, I'm gonna bust out the big spoiler alert right now because my favorite part of this whole movie is the end.
Yeah,
I love the climax of this movie where Franco is scared. You can tell he's scared because he's about to go with these 2 chicks. He doesn't really know how hardcore they are, and they're gonna go and they're gonna attack his former best friend, rival.
You can tell what he's probably most afraid of is that they're gonna actually want to do this because he's just a bunch of fucking talk.
Yeah, he does not want to do it.
Remember when I think it's very explicit. He was side by side, car by car earlier with this guy, and they shot one of his girls, and he didn't really do shit. He's as they call him out, he's a pussy.
He's a pussy.
Yeah,
but he gets bumped off. First. Immediately. And that is a stroke of genius. That is a Herzog. Werner Herzog would look at this movie and go, amazing.
He did, didn't he?
Amazing. I'm sure he did. Yeah. Because that is exactly the way that it was supposed to happen. It's not what you expect to happen. It's not what you want to happen, but it's exactly what should and does happen.
It's a movie that is revealing kingpins to you one after another. And what you realize is that Candy and Britt are the real kingpins of Miami. Like, they deserve to be in charge because they're the most cutthroat. They give the least fucks. They're the most committed to spring break.
Yeah. Well, they're nihilists. There's no question about it. They don't, whatever happens tomorrow, they don't care about tomorrow. They're living for today. They're really existentialist nihilists. That's the story. I do want to point out that Harmony Korine's next movie is called The Beach Bum, and it only has one star, and that's Matthew McConaughey, where he plays a rebellious stoner named Moondog who lives life by his own rules. And that's supposed to come out this year.
I can't fucking wait.
I know, me either.
That sounds great. So spring break, it seems like you got a couple kinds of people who are into spring break. You got your faiths who are into spring break until it stops being what you thought it was gonna be.
Well, hey, and you would think that the bad people would be the guys. Automatically, spring breakers, you're thinking that the guys are the ones that are gonna be the assholes. They're the ones who are ripping chicks' bikini tops off and
right.
Pissing in the bushes and doing all the nasty guy shit. But the truth is, the girls really are, as we see.
But yeah, I think that is kind of the statement. But it's interesting because it's neither.
They're equal.
It's neither feminist, misogynist, or anti-male.
It's equal. It's equal.
There's and ultimately, like, those two girls, they don't seem like sexualized creatures at the end. They don't even they truly seem like they are sociopaths that are not sexually driven by things. I remember there's this line where James Franco says to them, "I think I'm in love with y'all."
That's what he says right after he sucks their guns.
Well, I'm thinking there's a scene in a hot tub too.
Okay.
In the pool, he says that. And Vanessa Hudgens says to him, so he says, "I think I'm in love with y'all." And he says it in a way that's, in the sense where he doesn't really want to say how he feels, but he truly is completely smitten by these girls. So the "I think" is to soften it. And Vanessa Hudgens says, "We think we're in love with you." And it's a perfect line delivery because it sounds like she's affirming him and saying the same thing back, but really the sense of it with the "I think" is that they're not capable of love.
No one is. No,
they're not.
No one.
They're not there. They don't see each other as equals. And
there's also some resonance. We're backtracking here, but we just did Rude Boy, and there's a similar thinking in that movie.
I don't believe in love.
I don't believe in love. And then you get the resonance from Joe Strummer when he's singing "Love in Vain" and "I Fought the Law," and the passion that Strummer exerts throughout the whole movie is just proof of that. And that's the thing that you have also in this movie, is where James Franco's character is hugely passionate person. He's the most passionate person. And so you have, even though we've been talking this whole time about these sociopathic characters, you never question it. And it's because of the way Harmony lets Franco's character be the protagonist. He serves as that guide for you, and you trust in his passion as a human being. And part of that, we discussed, the scene where he's trying to convince Selena Gomez how much he likes her and all this stuff, and you think when you're watching those scenes, is he pouring it on thick? Is he really think this, or is he just, is this his line? But either way, you have that connection, you have that empathy, and it's an important thing in this movie that if you didn't have that, this movie would not work at all. Because you don't get that from the girls.
No.
To me, the girls are almost faceless.
Right.
I think when we're sitting here, and you've seen it a couple times, so when you're talking about Vanessa Hudgens, and I'm like, Yeah,
No,
that one.
It's intentionally difficult to tell them apart. They are, I think, intentionally roughly the exact same height. Their hair color,
and they wear the
same.
masks a lot.
And
they're shot from behind low a lot.
It's not a real slam if you can't tell them apart easily. I think it's very intentional, and there's a way to shoot people who look very similar so that they look different.
Yeah.
And they intentionally avoided that.
They avoided that. All right, here's what I have to say. Harmony, Korine, come on our podcast. Choose a movie to talk about. We want to have you sit here with us at the table.
I had Harmony, you're going to know who I'm talking about. You have a best friend, apparently. I don't remember his name, but his mother cuts hair. She used to cut your hair. She cut my hair one time, told me about cutting your hair.
In Nashville.
I mean, it's...
Just go to colesmithy.com and email us. We want to have you on the show. We want to talk about a movie with you. Thank you all so much for listening to our La Grande Bouffe, the Big Feast, for your dining pleasure. Please do us a favor and pledge us your support. $5, $10, $20 a month would be divine. We would love you, and there are rewards that we will share with you. And please remember to turn your cell phones off all the time.
All the time.